This is the Bucks Beat, dishing scoops and dropping knowledge about your favorite team.
Inbound pass, he will hand up to Giannis. Look out below. Whoa, hide the women and children. Giannis goes flying to the rim.
Stay tapped in with the Bucks Beat.
Hands it off to Green. AJ fires up a transition three, and he drills it. The Bucks have officially re-entered the conversation.
Powered by Bucks Plus, the official podcast network of the Milwaukee Bucks. Broadcasting live from the Annex Wealth Management Studios at the Avenue in downtown Milwaukee. Here's your host, Monis Khan.
Ladies and gentlemen, ball lovers and ball knowers, welcome to the first episode of The Bucks Beat. During the day, I'm the editor-in-chief of Bucks Plus, the official podcast network of the Milwaukee Bucks. But on Mondays between 8 to 9, I'm here on WTMJ bringing you The Bucks Beat, where every week we will deliver essential insights and analysis from the people that know the team best, the people who cover the team every single day. Yes, that includes the team's beat writers, but it also includes broadcasters, podcasters, content creators, the sickos who make Bucks content, whether professionally or just from the love of the game. That's who you'll be hearing from here every week on the Bucks Beat on WTMJ between 8 p.m. and 9 p.m. And today, we have a show for you because you deserve it. Because you've spent an entire offseason enduring endless speculation, hysteria from the uninformed, from the obnoxious. But we are here to celebrate the beginning of the Bucks season, and no one better than the person I call the godfather of Bucks content. He's an analyst on the Bucks radio network. You can hear him on WTMJ after every game on Bucks Talk. You can hear him in the mornings on the Locked On Bucks podcast. Justin Garcia, the Podfather, will be joining us. And we have an exclusive preview of the Here District podcast interview with Shea Serrano. Here District, hosted by Marcus and Chris Johnson, have the four-time New York Times best-selling author Shea Serrano to give you a preview of his new book, Expensive Basketball. An amazing interview with Shea. We'll preview here on this show coming up. And before we adjourn tonight on the Bucks Beat, Gale Klappa, host of the Courtside podcast, is giving us an excerpt of his new interview just recorded today with Doc Rivers. So we have Justin Garcia, Shea Serrano, Doc Rivers, all coming up. But we're going to begin where it always begins with the Bucks, with the superstar, Giannis Antetokounmpo. 36, 17, and 6. 68% shooting percentage through the first 3 games. I mean, these are cartoon numbers. But those of us who have watched Bucks basketball know that even Herculean performances from Giannis will not necessarily guarantee that this team will be able to make it past the first round, make it through the Eastern Conference in the playoffs. It's going to take a team effort. And no one understands this more than Bucks coach Doc Rivers. But one thing that he was encouraged by during training camp, during the preseason, was the fight that the second unit, the bench, was putting up against the first team Bucks in this offseason.
It was great. One of the most competitive preseasons I think I've ever had as a coach. That's saying a lot. And I thought a lot of things were at play. They obviously know that Giannis and Miles and those guys are on the first unit, but they didn't care, and I love that. I love the fact that there were arguments, guys wouldn't give in to each other.
And they needed everybody to come back down 18 points in the third quarter, tied the game in the fourth before it got away from them in a 5-point loss to the Cavs last night. They needed all of their players to show up. And it's not an excuse this season that maybe everybody won't be healthy, because by the time the playoffs roll around, not everyone is healthy. Regardless of who is on the court, Giannis can't be the only player who is stepping up. So for Giannis to have 40 points, 14 rebounds, and 9 assists last night in only 33 minutes, it took the other players on the team stepping up in the time that he was off the court in order to make this game competitive. And one thing, even within this loss, that has to be encouraging for Bucks fans is what Giannis said in the locker room after the game.
I think in the fourth quarter, Coach Doc came to me and was like, hey, get ready. I was like, no, let them play. Let them play because like they were figuring things out. They were playing the right way. They were moving the ball. They were defending. The zone was really, really good. And as a leader, you got to be able to be okay with that.
It's when Giannis is off the floor, those minutes, whether the team can be plus in those minutes, that'll decide how far this team will go this season. And it was encouraging in the first 2 games when most of the team was healthy. But now, facing some adversity, you start to begin to see how far this team can really go, who this team really is, what is their identity. And you see them maintaining that fight on defense. You see them playing the same way on offense, regardless of who's on the court. And that's what you're going to need to see from this team, that fight every day for this team to go as far as it wants to go, to prove all the naysayers wrong who are prognosticating that they're going to finish between the 5th seed and the play-in. Well, this team, it doesn't believe that. That's not what it thinks when it looks in the mirror. But only time will tell. And we have an amazing schedule of games this week on WTMJ. You can listen to Dave Kane and Justin Garcia call the Knicks on Tuesday. The Warriors come to town on Thursday. The Kings on Saturday before the Pacers are back on Monday. So it's an incredible beginning to the season, a true test of what this team will be able to accomplish. Even so early on, we'll be able to get insight into that. A great show planned for you guys today. This is the Bucks Beat, and we'll be back after this break. Welcome back to the Bucks Beat here on WTMJ. I'm your host, Monis Khan, editor-in-chief of Bucks Plus, and here I'm joined by my Bucks Plus teammate, Dylan Hunter Carter, the producer of the Here District podcast. Dylan, thanks for joining us today.
What's up, Monis? Great to be here. Excited for this week of Bucks basketball.
It's going to be a big week, and, it's already been a great start to the season for the Milwaukee Bucks, Dylan. And every week, Dylan's going to be joining us here on the Bucks Beat to talk about what he thinks is the story of the week. So, Dylan, what are the stories that didn't quite make the cut?
All right, so there's a lot to talk about, but first let's get into the injury bug. Let's get that out of the way early. Unfortunately, the Bucks are dealing with a couple things so far. Lost Kevin Porter Jr. about 10 minutes into his season. He was on fire to start the game, twisted his ankle. We don't necessarily know what the timetable is there, but Ryan Rollins stepped up. Cole Anthony stepped up immediately, embodying that next man up mentality that the Bucks have been talking about for years. Now is the time to thrive. The next game, Kyle Kuzma exits the second game with an ankle injury. Bobby Portis steps up, and Cole Anthony off the bench explodes with an incredible game-saving performance. He crushed it. The next game, Cole Anthony's sick. What are the Bucks to do? They're down 2 guards. Well, Ryan Rollins, incredible, leads the team in minutes, plays fantastic defense, 14 points, 8 assists, 4 rebounds, 3 steals. He's everywhere. So, despite the injury bug, the Bucks are managing to do whatever they need to in order to win. Number 2 on the list, the Bucks' defensive activity hit another level. If you've been paying attention to this team, defense is something that they've been thriving on, especially through the preseason. With Miles Turner under center, they are ready to pounce, and it's showing in the numbers. 13th in opponent turnovers per game last year, up so far to 15 opponent turnovers, so forcing some more turnovers. 12th in steals so far this season compared to 27th last season. Bottom 4 in the league last year, and they're already back up into the top half. Tied for 7th in blocks through 3 games compared to 19th last year, and 9th in deflections compared to 22nd last season. So what do these numbers mean? Well, the guys are everywhere. They are swarming on defense. They are moving quicker. They are reacting faster. They are more in sync. And somebody always has your back in this defense. That's why I think the Bucks are poised to have a great defensive season. But that's not number 1.
On defense, through adversity, it is a next man up. It's a team that's playing together. I think that much is clear through the first 3 games of the season. But, Dylan, now we are here to the story of the week. What do you think is the most important thing we should be paying attention to?
Listen, some people might think it's the low-hanging fruit, but sometimes you just have to respect greatness. In the first week of the season, 3 games, Giannis is averaging 36 points, 16 rebounds, and 7 assists. These are 2K numbers, Monis. These are not numbers that guys put up on the regular. So now he has the third most games of at least 40 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists in NBA history. 151 of those games. If he stays at this pace, he's going to shatter that record. 2 Bucks greats ahead of him, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Oscar Robertson, 2 guys that he's chasing. If he gets 6 more of these games, there he is, number 1 in NBA history. A couple more stats to throw at you. First player in NBA history with 100-plus points, 40-plus rebounds, and 15-plus assists in the first 3 games of the season. Now he has the most games in NBA history with 40 points on 70% shooting or better. Every single season, Giannis shatters new records. And we become kind of dull to it, kind of numb to it. Maybe it doesn't jump off the page the way that it's supposed to. But honestly, we shouldn't be. Let's not get it twisted. Giannis Antetokounmpo is the best basketball player in the world, and it's time for people outside of Milwaukee to stop pretending otherwise.
I mean, just an extraordinary. You can use many words. You can use words that, no matter what you say, every single year he breaks record after record after record, and that is not normal. When you're the only person in NBA history to do any of the things that he's done, that is extraordinary given the level of talent, legends that have played this game, and no one has done it. I think that's fair to say, in the way that Giannis is doing it today. And ladies and gentlemen, we get to watch this. We get to listen to this on WTMJ in real time. And I think that's what's extraordinary. Dylan, another extraordinary thing is that Shea Serrano, one of the most amazing people, if you're on NBA Twitter or if you love listening to podcasts or reading any of his 4 times New York Times best-selling books, Shea Serrano joined Here District this week. Dylan, what do you think is the most exciting part of that conversation that Bucks fans can download tomorrow on the Here District podcast, wherever they get their podcasts?
Well, it goes in a lot of different directions. One of the parts that was my favorite was their entire section dedicated to basketball movies. We know Shea lives at that intersection of movies, basketball, pop culture, music. And that was a really fun conversation, a great way to tie in Marcus's history. But at the same time, number 1 on the list, it's got to go to his entire chapter of his new book, Expensive Basketball, dedicated to Giannis's Game 6 performance in the finals.
As somebody who's just watching impartially, I don't have any connection to the Bucks or to the Suns. I'm just watching in awe of what this guy's doing. And you're like, well, surely we've seen the best of it. And then he shows up in Game 6 with a 50, 14, and 5 stat line. It just felt like this needs to be coronated. Yeah. This needs to be celebrated some sort of way. I'm going to write a book about basketball feelings and not include this exact moment.
What an interview with Shea Serrano. Bucks fans, you can listen to that on the Here District podcast tomorrow morning, every Tuesday, publishing on the Bucks YouTube channel, everywhere you get your podcast. Thank you, Dylan, for joining us here on the Bucks Beat. And we'll be back with Justin Garcia, analyst for the Bucks Radio Network, here on the Bucks Beat after this break. Welcome back, everyone, to the Bucks Beat. I am your host, Monis Khan, and holy moly, we are back with a special guest. And I couldn't imagine a better person to have as our inaugural guest on the Bucks Beat than someone who you can hear for every home game as an analyst on the Bucks Radio Network and here on WTMJ, after the game on Bucks Talk, every morning on the Locked On Bucks podcast. Honestly, I don't know how he does it, but I'm so grateful to be joined by Justin Garcia. Thanks, Justin, for joining us.
Yeah, Monis, the intro too kind. I'm guessing Lisa, Marcus, Dave, Wesley Matthews, Mel, Steven, the list goes on and on, that were just unavailable to join, so you had to settle for me.
You know what? Actually, first overall choice, the only person I thought of, nobody better, because for years, WTMJ listeners got to enjoy Bucks Weekly. And we are, Justin, as you know, the spiritual successor to Bucks Weekly here on the Bucks Beat. Justin, early when I led this show off, I called you the godfather of Bucks content, the podfather, if you will. Nobody does more. Nobody does it better. Justin, what advice do you have when it comes to giving Bucks fans what they want? What advice do you have for us here on Bucks Beat?
For this show, you and I were talking about it too, in that I think as the audience goes on this journey, they'll be very pleased and fulfilled here because you are one of the more creative guys I have gotten a chance to know, and you just think outside the box, which I don't tend to do as much. I just kind of get stuck in this is what happened on the court, and I'm sure at times that can get boring, but you have an interesting lens of how you view the game, the team, and everything that's going around the league and everything else, and just your gift for storytelling. So I would just say continue to lean into that.
And the story, Justin, so kind of you. And that's the bar now. That's the bar. And our listeners, just like you let the Bucks players know after every game how you're feeling about how the team is doing, you got to let us know here at WTMJ, here at the Bucks Beat. I'm Mr. Big Fits on Twitter. So just at me and ruin my day if that's what I deserve. Because Justin just set the bar for us here as to what it will take. Justin, after every game, the story of the game is always the beat writers. One of my favorite parts is them asking every player, like, can you believe what Giannis just did? Because every game is a cartoon stat line. Last night, 40, 14, and 9. And Ryan Rollins, after the game, I felt like really encompassed answering this question. Every player has to answer it after every single game. And he did it in a way that I thought was meaningful. Justin, how do you not take it for granted?
Yeah.
And then how do you describe even just yesterday's 40, 14, and 9 and 4 stocks?
Yeah. We talk about it a lot too on Locked On Bucks, and that, as you mentioned, don't take it for granted. And we've tried to put that message out there, but you do a lot of times because it just becomes like second nature of like, oh, by the way, Giannis was great again. So a lot of times when you go through the game, like case in point, last night's game, we led off a lot of discussion with Ryan Rollins and the big step forward that he took, rightfully so. Like I think Ryan Rollins, I've been very high on him for over a year now and said, I think this is the guy that at the end of the season, he's going to take the biggest step forward. And teams are going to say like, man, why did we not go after him? Like the Bucks renounced his rights. He was an unrestricted free agent. There was no worrying about will they match it. And they kept him for basically the veteran minimum for multiple years. Why did we not go after that? So you get like kind of trapped into that. And then you're like, oh yeah, by the way, Giannis did Giannis things again with 40 points. And there's a couple of moments that stood out, like just how much he cleans everything up and what we're starting to see with him play next to another rim protector like he always had with Brook, but somebody that can do things in a different way with Miles Turner that kind of gives him a little more freedom. Like Giannis was always the ultimate help defender, but you knew my big is going to be here right next to the rim so I can swoop in and help out. Miles Turner can do a little more than that, and that's not meant as a shot at Brook Lopez. But there was a couple of plays last night, like Andre Jackson he had to lean on because of the lack of ball handlers with the injuries. And, to be expected for a guy that didn't see the floor yet outside of garbage time, there's one or two miscues in the early going where, oh, there's Giannis there to come up with a block shot on a play that Andre maybe was out of position on. And even looking at that stat line of 40 points and a near triple-double, the efficiency is what stood out the most to me, and that's nothing new for Giannis, but you have to view it with this lens. We have been told all offseason, this is not a good team that's surrounding Giannis, and there just isn't any talent there, which, I think the jury is still out on how talented this group is, but if that's the case, I would assume his efficiency numbers would plummet this year because teams are just going to say, we got to gear up on Giannis and let's just make somebody else beat us, especially last night. If you don't have Cole Anthony, who had a monster game against the Raptors, you don't have Kevin Porter Jr. yet. If that's true, then I would expect Giannis to be like, wow, Giannis had a sub 50% shooting game, but that wasn't the case. I mean, so far this season, his least efficient game has been against the Wizards, which if you look at these three teams, nobody would say the Wizards have the toughest defense that he's going against. So that to me is just, I know it's only 3 games, but that's the thing that I think needs to be mentioned more of like, hey, if this is true in the talent level this guy has with him, then why is he still as efficient as ever?
Through 3 games, 36, 16, and 7 assists on 68% shooting. Now, only through 3 games. And I think one of those magic numbers that we're looking at to see just how sustainable this is, just how far this team can go on his shoulders. 33 minutes last night.
Yeah.
He played 33 minutes last night. I think that's a really good number, a really good limit to keep him around in order to make sure to maximize his impact on the game. You mentioned it, Justin, Ryan Rollins. Now, it feels like we're literally watching this player grow like before our eyes. And this is a feeling that Bucks fans, we got to have it recently with AJ Green. There's a few guys who crack a rotation and you kind of get to watch them grow. But on such a, for so long, a veteran-laden team, what you started with is sort of what you got. And now you technically have a variable here that you don't know where this player is going. What do you think about Ryan Rollins and his role on this team?
I mean, I've, as I said, I've been very high on him. I think it was John Horst in the offseason that said the guy that he reminds him of the most is George Hill, which is, you kind of like, I think a lot of people hear that and like, oh, George Hill, can't we do a little better than that? But I mean, George Hill, especially his first stint with the Bucks, was a great role player and a combo guard that you had that could, be the point guard for the second unit, could play next to Eric Bledsoe and do some things there as an off-ball creator. And the more you watch Ryan Rollins, I think the more that is a pretty spot-on comp from John Horst. I do think there's a ceiling there that's a little higher than what George Hill displayed throughout his career. And George Hill had a terrific career. But he is already the best on-ball defender that this team has. I think you can make a case, too. He's already the best individual defender, period, that this team has. Led the league through the first 2 games. I think it's still the same through 3 in deflections. And you can just see like how he can wear guys. And even, Donovan Mitchell, he had to take on that assignment quite a bit in the game last night. Donovan Mitchell had a fine game, but it wasn't efficient. And it wasn't one of those where you're like, man, Donovan Mitchell really cooked Ryan Rollins, which, I think in the past we would have seen those types of moments. So I'm just really high on his ability as a defender. And I think the thing that stands out to me the most is, again, kind of those George Hill comps that he plays next to Giannis so well because he can be a point guard, as Doc pointed out several times last year. He's not a natural point guard, and they're still trying to teach him that. And I think you see that at times. But he really thrives off the ball and in catch and shoot roles, and he's starting to get more confidence in his game, as we've seen him working after home games quite a bit with trainers and coaches, that you can see that starting to grow, where he's figuring out, here's how I can get my shot. Like the Cavs game, he created it with that step back 3. He has the ability to finish with both hands too. And that's, I think, on the offensive side, what's been most impressive is he just has this knack to kind of knife through the defense, and he's getting better at finishing at the rim, which is, ultra important for this team, because if it's Giannis with shooters, well, in the minutes that Giannis is off the floor, you still need somebody to get into the lane and create those looks, and that's what Ryan Rollins continues to do.
A real bucket getter at Toledo. So it's great to see not only has he grown into kind of a new role and really has developed an identity on the defensive side of the ball, but he has this side to his game as that bucket getter, as the guy who can put the ball on the floor, make plays for others, make contested jumpers that he can grow into. And we'll see if he's going to be able to translate that part of his offensive repertoire into his role on this team. We are here with Justin Garcia, analyst on the Bucks Radio Network, and we'll be back on the Bucks Beat here on WTMJ right after this break. Welcome back to the Bucks Beat. We are joined by Justin Garcia. Justin, the Miles Turner experience. It's off to an interesting start here. right? Not shooting like he wants to be shooting from the floor, but a plus player across 3 games in his net rating, and clearly a difference maker on the defensive side of the ball. How are you grading this beginning to the Miles Turner experience in Milwaukee, and what do you think about what he's been able to do as a Buck so far?
So you want a letter grade?
Let's start with your letter grade. I want you to give me, based on your eye test, how you think he's been doing.
I suppose it's like, how critical do you want to be? I mean, I would just give him a B. I think there may be some like, oh, you got to go a little lower because of the scoring, but I think it's a good thing for the time being. Like, you can clearly see, and I think Doc talked about it after one of the games too. It might have been after the Raptors game. Like, we still want him to be a little more aggressive. But I think he's been perfectly fine. And it's, we can't gloss over the fact that he had a game and a half, a game to work with Giannis in the preseason. So like, this is still going to be a work in progress of sorts to figure out how do we play off of each other on both ends of the floor. So I would expect that to take time. I do think you'd like to see him be a little more aggressive, but I'm also not going to complain with, the overall style that he's brought of looking to continue to move the ball, get outlet passes, moving off the ball as well, which are all things that this team just wasn't doing the last few years, not just the last 2. It extended beyond that. So I think he's been a pretty good agent of change so far for this group. Defensively, I think he's answered all of any questions anybody would have had with his rim protection. He's had multiple blocks in each of the 3 games this season. So I really like how that fits with Giannis. And, I think as the season progresses, he's gonna be more aggressive defensively and obviously scoring more. I just don't think, I don't, and this was even before these 3 games, I didn't envision Miles Turner to be their second leading scorer, and I don't think that was the thought when you brought him in. It was just, we know the big that works next to Giannis. We know how this is gonna help our defense, and, to a lesser extent, we think Miles does some of these things well that's gonna help our offense as a whole.
And obviously, if you're looking at the box scores, that 34% shooting percentage from the field, 24%
20-something from 3, yeah.
from 3 are going to jump out. But when you're watching the games, which is what we do here, which is what distinguishes us here on the Bucks Beat and the people who we have join us on the Bucks Beat, we pay attention to what's going on the floor. When you're watching the games, you're just seeing open looks, unbelievable looks. And you got to think, that we've seen slumps, shooting slumps. Every player has them. And we just got to think, like, once those shots start falling, what's going to happen to this team? A team that's been playing pretty close, a close game against the Cavs, 2 wins against kind of, you could say, lesser opponents to start the season. What's going to happen when Miles Turner becomes that efficient offensive player that he can be? And Justin, you brought up a really great point, a really great question here about the second leading scorer. I am of the impression that this second leading scorer conversation is very similar to Packers fans when we're hearing people argue about wide receiver 1.
Yeah.
Because the question is like, do you need a wide receiver 1? Do you need a guy who is going to be there every night as your second leading scorer? We're talking about the Bucks now, Justin. Will this team need someone to step up and be that guy night in and night out for this team to be great?
To be great, I think so. And was it you that asked Doc about it again too, where he said after the first game or second game too, like, I don't know that we'll even know the answer throughout the course of the season. Like, we've had 3 different second leading scorers through 3 games. I at this point, I think we're going to have 4 through 4 games. Like, that trend is going to continue. I kind of waffled back and forth through the offseason over who would be the second leading scorer. Would it be Gary Trent Jr. or Kevin Porter Jr.? Obviously, not having KPJ means we can't really get a good read on that quite yet. But I think as you get deeper into the season and in that stretch drive to the playoffs, and in the playoffs especially, I think you do need a clear-cut, this is the number 2 guy, but it can't be so reliant, and Giannis himself has said this, it can't be so reliant on, it's Giannis and this guy. And then whatever happens after, that happens, but it's these two guys that have to be the ones eating. We've seen how that works, not just with the Bucks, but with other teams, the past couple of years. It's a different league now. So what they are doing where it's, well, one game it could be AJ Green, one game it could be Gary Trent Jr. We haven't seen Miles Turner be the second guy yet. One of those games, that's going to be the case. Like, I do think that's a good thing to kind of work throughout the course of the season. And I still ultimately think as he gets back and healthy, it's gonna be Kevin Porter Jr.
I think it's a good problem to have at this stage. You got a bunch of young players and 7 or 8 guys who can get to double digits. Which one is, just like Packers fans are excited to find out Christian Watson just getting back on the field, excited to find out who is going to be that wide receiver one. Bucks fans now get to look at this team and learn in real time which of these players is going to step up to a place and take their game to a place that they have not gotten to so far in their careers. Always a pleasure speaking with you, Justin. Thank you for joining us on the Bucks Beat. You can listen to Justin every home game as an analyst on the Bucks Radio Network, pregame for every Bucks game here on WTMJ, postgame on WTMJ on Bucks Talk, and every single day on Locked On Bucks podcast. Thank you, Justin, for joining us, and we'll be right back after this quick break. Wow. Just an amazing interview from Gale Klappa on the Courtside podcast with Doc Rivers. Go and subscribe wherever you get your podcast to listen to the rest of this episode with Doc Rivers. And tomorrow morning, when you wake up, you'll have an interview with Shea Serrano on Here District that you can download wherever you get your podcast or watch the episode on the Bucks official YouTube channel. And we'll be back next week on Tuesday from 8 to 9 with our next episode of the Bucks Beat. You're listening to WTMJ. Have a great night.